to start out, what initially inspired this research project was the mind and body connection. There's a lot of emphasis on connecting the mind and body, and as a simple definition, mind and body connection essentially entails the overall encompassing benefits that arise from considering your mind and body as one being. One study that's a great example of this was a study that obtained National Health Survey data at the national level, and they actually found a significant direct correlation between degree of stress and degree of chronic lower back pain. So really kind of emphasizing that connection that your mind and your body play together. And so we wanted to kind of dive deeper into this and see if there was a way to strengthen that connection and if it could optimize music performance. And so what we did was research various ways that we could connect the mind and body and how they could be implemented into musical performance. So we were able to narrow these methods down to 4 different methods, and these were affirmation, visualization, EFT being emotional freedom technique. EFT, for those of you who do not know what that is, it's a similar approach to acupuncture in that it targets various pressure points in the body, but is non-invasive, and so because it's just tapping. And our last method that we researched was meditation. We found a lot of significance in medication across a lot of different areas. So one of those areas was musical aesthetic emotion processing. Musical aesthetic emotion processing is essentially the cognitive and emotional feelings that arise from musical experiences. The study that we looked at was listening to music, and obviously those differ widely between individuals, but it really looks a lot at the aesthetic appreciation for music and, like I had mentioned, the emotions that arise from something like that. So we found this study found that meditation really enhanced musical aesthetic emotion processing. There is extensive literature supporting improvement of sports performance using meditation, which we found would likely be transferable to musical performance. Another one of those that we found meditation really enhanced was cognition. In this specific study, there was a lot of significance on cognition in that it improved the participants' attention as well as their cognitive flexibility, so their ability to return to tasks upon experiencing a distraction, and the cognitive inhibition, which was their ability to just block out distraction entirely. And this specific study actually used a 10-minute guided meditation for their participants. And what they found from this specifically was that participants, regardless of past meditation experiences, they still produce significant benefits in their cognition. And so with that, we wanted to kind of determine whether meditation could optimize our musical performance, right? And so using a guided meditation, similar to the study previously mentioned, we hypothesized that providing participants with a meditation session prior to musical performance regulate the nervous system, enhance cognition, as well as musical aesthetic emotion processing, which would decrease their performance anxiety and improve their musical performance. So kind of our design that we laid out for this experiment was that we wanted our independent variable to be a 10-minute guided meditation. This was developed by Dr. Amanda O'Hare as well as Dr. Kai, I think. Our dependent variable obviously being the musical performance itself. What is difficult about a study like this is the very large amount of variability among musicians. I myself am a piano performance major, and you see a lot of different strengths and weaknesses among musicians. You can see some being really technically advanced and others having really clear musical ideas. And so it's very difficult to measure. So what we had to do in order to measure something like this was our participants had to be measured against themselves. And so this would obviously entail a repeated measures design. So we had them perform the same musical piece twice, one of which they were given the experimental meditation prior to their performance, and the other was a placebo-controlled inspirational reading on book chapter Coping with Performance Anxiety by John Smith's Inner Game of Music. Like I had mentioned, their same piece was performed twice, exactly 24 hours apart. What we had to do was obviously the second performance, if they were to practice it in between, it would be likely that they could improve in that period of time. So in order to control for that, we had, which is very anxiety-inducing as a musician, but we had a 24-hour no practice rule. They could not practice 24 hours before their first performance or the 24 hours between their first and second performance. This would also entail a 3 to 7 minute memorized work of music of their choosing. Our participant makeup was, we wanted it to be in order to make measurement easier, we wanted it to be the same instrument, and so these were 11 collegiate pianists that we recruited from various universities in the area. Our audience makeup, which is important to kind of induce that anxiety for the performance, was actually their fellow research participants who were also collegiate pianists, which is also a very stressful experience playing for someone who knows how to play the piano as well. So as mentioned, our measurements were self, audience, and professional performance evaluations. The audience evaluation making up of other collegiate pianists enhanced the credibility for those evaluations, and our professional pianists evaluate these performances as well. We also had them evaluate their performance anxiety prior to their performance, as well as their overall levels of mindfulness. And in order to obtain a more, obviously these are very difficult things to measure, so we wanted a more physiological measurement as well, so we included heart rates. You can kind of see our criteria for the self-audience as well as professional all had the same rubric. Our professional performance evaluation was on a slightly higher scale because of the credibility, but this is similar to, this is the UMTA achievement, and this is just a Utah competition for piano, and we kind of use that as a reference, as well as music evaluation performance sheets, combining this into various categories that are assessed in competition or feedback experiences. For the performance anxiety, we just use a Likert scale adapted from the performance anxiety questionnaire. It looks pretty similar to a generalized anxiety Likert scale, but with being more specific to their performance. You can kind of look at the questions there as well. We also wanted to evaluate levels of mindfulness, and this was adapted from the modified mindful attention awareness scale, which was just various, this doesn't include all of them, but just kind of assessing how present they felt themselves to be during the performance. As you can see from our list over here, we did not find any significant difference actually for any of the measurement categories. And here's kind of some scales just displaying that. Obviously, there are a lot of limitations, especially just with the subjectivity of music. We all experience music differently, and that would, include our audience members as well as our professionals, as well as the self-evaluations. We all have various ideas about that. Another limitation was the audience and professionals having that previous exposure to listening the first time to the piece and listening the second time. As well as our placebo control group, I mentioned that chapter, we wanted to control for the placebo effect, and let our participants be under the impression that they were receiving something, but it's not unlikely that this also could have produced similar effects to the meditation, because this chapter of the book was tailored to reducing performance anxiety. As well as the small sample size, it's very difficult to recruit musicians, especially for 2 days, but got as many as we could. And another limitation was likely just the second performance being less anxiety inducing than the first. They were familiar with the instrument, they were familiar with the area, and everything like that. So these limitations obviously, provide some future directions. One of the options that could be altered was that we presented the participants with their treatment after their 15-minute warm-up time that they were given. And what we could have done was we had a few participants kind of report like, oh, I'm so sleepy right before I'm about to perform. So maybe giving them the treatment prior to their warm-up time so that they can kind of get in a more of a flow zone before they perform, which is obviously much more common in a competition or performance setting. Another option would be to measure the sight reading ability. Again, sight reading is subjective and unique to each individual, but sight reading is very easy to measure. You can count mistakes, count overall accuracy with a very clear notation for that. Another option would be to explore a different method of connecting the mind and body. We did a lot of research on how each of these visualization, affirmation, and emotional freedom technique could optimize musical performance on their own, and so maybe try something like a different independent variable of connecting the mind and body. Another option would be to use it consistently over a longer period of time. We wanted to try something that they could use for a short period of time prior to a performance, but perhaps meditating over a longer course of time, and like a lot of studies show, could produce more benefits over a long term outcome. And so here's some of our sources here. But that's